Hello.
This is Darina
And Deanna
with Bledsoe Empower. Welcome back to our podcast, Empower El Mundo. We are your former collegiate athletes, now trained mental health counselors.
Yes, on this podcast, you can expect to hear about all things total wellness. That is going to include physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual connections. So make sure to tune in every single week because we'll be here.
And we're on all social media platforms. So make sure you follow us and subscribe to Empower El Mundo. Let's get into it.
Let's go. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Welcome, y'all. I am Darina.
I'm Deanna.
And we are
Bledsoe
Bledsoe Empower. We're so happy that you guys are tuning in today for our next chapter of the journal, Empowered as Fuck.
Yes, you guys. We basically have broken down each section of the journal and had a special guest really dive in and provide their expert advice on what that topic is.
What's today's topic, Deanna?
Listen, this is one of my favorite topics. What love feels like.
Uh-oh. My love is like,
Whoa.
my this is like,
Whoa.
my this is like,
Whoa.
Oh. You heard
That
that,
was
right?
vocals.
You heard that? I didn't know Maya was in the building.
Listen, we're giving you a little bit of laughs. We're giving you a little bit of love. Really everything. So today is going to be really dope because we're going to talk about the different components and elements of a really healthy and also unhealthy romantic relationship.
Absolutely. There's so much that goes into relationships. And one thing that we know, especially with this journal that is tailored to women, it's very important for us to get that reassurance, that validation in a relationship that's romantic. And it's also really important to kind of understand what our role is in that. So we're going to break it down for you today. We're going to talk about attachment styles. We're going to talk about communication styles. We're going to put our special guest in the hot seat as well.
Yes.
We're so excited to introduce y'all to her. To get started, let's kick them off with learning more about attachment styles.
Yes. Okay. So attachment styles they show up in every type of relationship that we have. It's essentially the template of how you learn to bond with somebody. And it initially happens during our childhood. The very first relationship that we have is the one with the baby and the primary caregiver. So typically our mom or our dad. As babies, we really don't care who it is as long as there's somebody who can take care of us whenever we cry. That's how we develop like a secure and functional relationship.
Safety is major as a baby. We don't really have that conceptualization of what safety is, but we know what it feels like to be nurtured. And at times when we're talking about developmental stages, there's so many that go into it, but in our most primal form, if you have food, if you have safety, then you're going to be the one that I love and that I show love to.
Yes. And the reality is that doesn't happen all the time, right? Not the majority of us tend to have relationships that do not develop and feel secure. So we can learn to attach differently. We can learn to attach in an addictive type of fashion and even an avoidant type of fashion. So let me kind of break down what those three attachment styles are. So the love addicted attachment style means that when we were growing up, our parent seemed to be busy or preoccupied or not always there when I cried. I don't know for sure if my parent's going to come and nurture me and hug me and make sure that I'm okay. So what happens is every time I cry, if I'm an infant and I don't have that consistent reassurance that I'm safe, then I will start to develop in an anxiety type of way. So I will start to feel like I don't know when my parent will return in order to give me the type of nurturing that I need. So what we will do is we'll hold on to that person when they're there, because if they leave, there's a fear and there's an insecurity that they won't return. So if there's space in that relationship, it feels unsafe. So if I can hold on as tight as possible, then I will ideally, when you're in that love addicted type of mindset, I will be able to keep you closer.
So, classic example I love to give, especially when talking about kiddos and developing attachment styles with their caregiver, especially when there's that insecurity going on, is the ay, me olvidó. You know, when you drop off your kid at school, it's their first day at school, and they start to cry and holler, right? And they're not able to participate in class. They can't focus. They don't engage with other children because they want to go back to their parents, right? They want to go back home. And so oftentimes we see that insecurity or that form of attachment style developing in a way in their toddler years, in their adolescent years. It comes out that way. So it's really important to kind of find that fine line between providing a secure attachment and also allowing your child to develop some autonomy as well.
Yeah. Well, and so that's like the love addicted one. If you guys need a reference for, a celebrity reference that I think we're all familiar with, especially if you listen to hip hop or pop, is Ariana Grande, right? If you think about at least what we've been exposed to, we only know so much of what the media provides, but she has, over the last 5 years, has been engaged 3 times, broken up 3 times. So, like, that type of relational attachment style screams addictive attachment, which means that I am not able to be by myself. I feel more secure when I have somebody there, whether it's a healthy relationship or not. I need somebody there who can emotionally hold me down
And fill the void.
and fill the void.
Absolutely.
And so the other attachment style is love avoidant. This attachment style develops when we are kids and our parent is not there emotionally. So typically, if a parent is tells you, well, essentially, if a parent doesn't meet your needs in terms of like it feels like they reject you or it feels like they dismiss whatever your needs are, the child then has to become the parent and they have to meet their own needs as a little one. And so they tend to develop an attachment style that is distant from others because the only place that they feel safe is within the relationship with their self because they can't rely on anybody else. And so the way that those two attachment styles develop as adults is we can be attracted to a love addicted person can be attracted to a love avoidant person. And in the beginning it works because the love addicted person is showing the avoidant individual all of this attention, all of this nurturing that they didn't receive as a little one,
Love bombing.
love bombing. And over time, our innate attachment style shows up because it's our most vulnerable relationship that we have is with our romantic partner. And so the avoidant individual will back up because too many feelings is too uncomfortable. So they will start to create distance, which makes the addicted individual come even closer and need more.
Boom. So, just a little example out of the journal. A love addiction type of person will say, if I am not perfect, they will leave me. Someone who's love avoidant will say, if I leave first, they can't hurt me. This might sound familiar to some of y'all. And if you've ever been in that position, nobody's here to shame you. We just want to point it out. Because the biggest thing and the most empowering thing that you can do is learn more about your attachment style and how it works for you and how it's no longer serving you.
So when we think about, okay, so if we identify with either one of those, which I'm sure either you're thinking about how you've shown up in a relationship in either one of those ways, or you've dated somebody who you can identify as either one of those attachment styles. So what is like the goal attachment style? And it's to be in a secure and a functional relationship and attach securely and functionally, which means that you're able to be flexible. You're able to have space between you and your romantic partner, and it doesn't bring up an insecurity that they will leave me if I haven't talked to them for 6 hours. You know, it's allows you to adapt to what works within your relationship, adjust to the rules of how to live with that person, how to live in a happy dynamic between you two.
And know that you can change the rules. You can always change the rules, you can always update them. Biggest thing that you can do is communicate that to your partner, right? So, in going back to the journal, somebody who is experiencing functional love as their attachment says things like, I am lovable whether others see it or not. So the biggest thing for me when I hear a statement like that is self-love first, right?
100%.
Yeah, because how can you give it to anybody else if you don't even have the ability to give it to yourself?
Well, or how can someone else give it to you if they don't know what it looks like, if you don't know what it looks like for yourself?
For sure. Oof, right? Tables have turned.
So let me introduce you guys to our guest because she's been giving us a little bit of that amazing voice that she has. And if you're watching on YouTube, you see how gorgeous she is. If you're on the podcast listening, I highly encourage go to the YouTube, get this experience visually. But without further ado, let me introduce our dope guest, Michelle Craig.
Hello, hello. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So Michelle and I have been friends for, oh my gosh, years.
Many years.
Almost a decade.
I was thinking about it. I was like
About
eight
a
or
decade,
9.
actually, because
Yeah.
we met when I was probably like 20.
Yeah.
Well, I'm 30, so now you all know. So the reason we wanted Michelle to be on this specific episode is because she gets to experience her romantic relationship with her fiance in different settings. So she is an owner with her fiance on multiple businesses, and she also goes home with her fiance. The reason why we wanted Michelle is because she can speak to being in a relationship and having to communicate differently based off of the settings that she's in.
Thank you for coming here to share your knowledge and your perspective to everybody. When we come back from this commercial break, we're going to talk more with Michelle about her experiences, her giving us feedback about ways to continue to be in a place of empowerment and self-love. So make sure you listen to this commercial. Also, make sure to follow us, like, and hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube so that you don't miss any more episodes of the Empower El Mundo podcast.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, y'all. Welcome back to this section of What Love Feels Like. If you are just tuning in, we are talking about a section in our journal, the Empowered as Fuck Journal, and we have a special guest with us today.
Michelle Craig.
Hello, hello.
All right, you guys. So we are going to dive into a couple of things in this section. So the first part was attachment styles. What are those? What is love addicted? What is love avoidant? What is functional secure love? Now we need to talk about communication styles because how we attach totally impacts the way we communicate.
100%. And we all have varying communication styles that are based off of our upbringing, that's based off of our cultural background, that's based off of the person that we're sitting next to. I'm not going to talk to my boss the same way that I talk to my partner, right? In this case, with Michelle, it's a little bit unique.
Because she is a boss and her co-boss is also her partner.
And in some situations, he's really my boss too. So I have to be mindful of the dynamic that we have because the pitch you take at the house is not the pitch you take at the office. So we have a good time.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say the pitch you take in the bedroom is not the pitch you take in the.
Well, that
Equally too. Yeah, equally
That
different.
turned a corner.
So there's that. Listen, it's a podcast, so we can be relaxed.
Yes.
For sure.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your relationship in terms of the dynamic with work in comparison to the dynamic at home.
Oh, okay. So at home, I think that it's interesting because you want to make sure, and it's difficult when you're doing two things together, that you're not bringing too much of one to the other, right? Like nobody wants to get in bed and then you hit him with like the task list. And I've done it. And he was like, can we not do this? And I was like, good call. I need to, and that's healthy communication, right? Because he was like, you need to take that and can we leave that at the office? And I'm like, sure. But in the same respect, you think about all the things like you get home and you say, did you pay the bills or did you do this or whatever the case might be? And you have to make sure that you share that dynamic in a healthy fashion at home and at work. And at work, I'm much more submissive. I'm much more of a follower than the leader. I still have my voice, right? But it sits in a little bit differently. And at the house, I'm the head hen. So I just kind of do my thing.
It's like a game of chess, right? You
Yeah.
have to figure out when you're going to make a certain type of move, and other times you just have to wait.
And then sometimes when you go to work, the board flips. So now what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, now you're the white pieces instead of the black pieces.
Yeah.
Like,
So then okay, let me ask you this. When was the first time that you realized there needed to be a shift in the way that you communicated? Was there like a significant moment, or did it just naturally develop as you two grew in your relationship?
I would say that it definitely had to naturally develop. There were a few conversations that we had to have that were kind of like, you have to let me lead at the office because I'm very, very direct and I'm happy to share my perspective. So that was one thing I had to learn. Um, but it also gave me a moment to try to figure out how I could grow, right? Because every good person should. And you take that moment and you're like, okay, how can I actually not short term implement this, but how can I make this a long term change? And I think that was really a task, and it happened over time. But then you get to the point where you're like, have you noticed that you haven't had to tell me to shut up? In the, like you've been telling me to I've just been doing my thing for the most part. So it's kind of nice when you don't have to have that.
Yeah. I think that something that's really important is, and it's something that just develops over time as you have a romantic relationship, is the way that you two communicate, because there's 4 different types of communication styles, and we use them in different settings. We use them with our friends differently than we do with our partners, than we do with our bosses or coworkers. So if Dorina, can you give us an idea of like what the 4 types of communication styles are so that we can learn to identify them as we use them?
Yeah, I even think, Michelle, you brought up some really good examples of a few of them. So when you mention, if ever there's a situation where you're being told shut up or we need to talk
Right.
about something, right? That's an aggressive form of communication, right? That's in your face. It's violating boundaries. It might be emotional boundaries, it might be physical boundaries, but it's certainly pretty aggressive in terms of forcing your message down someone's throat, right? And they're not
Sure.
showing you they want to receive that message. And then you mentioned, when I'm at work, I'm a little bit more of that submissive role, right? And so what I'm hearing more of is the passive people pleasing communication. Now, this isn't, when we hear people pleasing, there's this negative connotation. And really what it means is that we're working with that other person, right? Even if it's a passive form of communication, we're taking more of the seat of being the active listener, right? Versus the active speaker, right? And then when you're the hen of the house, right? And we're having these discussions about, even with your partner saying, hey, let's not talk about this right now. This is supposed to be our relaxation time, right? And that's a form of assertive communication. Right?
100%.
Yeah.
And
it's
setting a solid boundary versus of, this is a work conversation and this is our home. So let's, create that boundary of like, let's still keep this space safe and like
Correct.
comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So would you say is the most effective type of communication style?
Always assertive. It's always going to be that
Always.
assertive communication. And the reason why is when you're practicing assertive communication, you're doing a lot of things. You're protecting your space. You're setting a boundary, right, to protect yourself, and you're also allowing that other person the space to express their opinions, their thoughts, and their beliefs. So you're not necessarily agreeing with them. You're not necessarily saying no, right, aggressively holding up that wall. But what you're saying is, I agree to disagree. I'm willing to work with you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Would you say that there has ever been, what would you say is your partner's most common communication style?
That's a good question. He's direct, but he's very polite. He's so polite. I'm so much more rude than he would be on any day of our entire lives. Oh my gosh. It's just like you see those things on everything in television or Instagram, and you see, you know, this doesn't have what I thought it was going to have on it at dinner, waitress,
Oh,
like
that's me.
oh my gosh. Excuse me,
Ma'am?
ma'am, politely, can we have that conversation? So
Yeah.
he's like, no, I'm good with mushrooms. I'm good with, I'm like, no, you're
No,
not.
you're
You're
like
allergic.
that.
Thank you. I'm like, stop.
Let me give you guys a quick little story because you say that. So a while ago, my boyfriend and I, we went to go get a massage, and it was at this place that it was absolutely a sketchy massage place.
Okay.
A sketchy massage
Sketch.
parlor.
Well, a massage parlor is very sketch in and
So
of itself.
there's that. So we went in there, right? He paid. We walked in, and we didn't. There were people walking around with no tops on, no shoes on. This is in mid COVID, okay? And they gave us like this uniform to put on put on, and it was like in like a little prison bag. Like it just was not
A uniform, not a robe?
not a robe.
What is going
what I'm telling
on?
you. There was like a freaking a food court over there in the corner. Like it was not happening. There was a guy sleeping on the leather couch with his feet on it, and just like not a single mask.
Deanna, why are we in there? Why are we still there?
That's what him and I said. So we walked out, and he, we were there literally 2 to 3 minutes. We walked out, and he was like, "We'll be back." He told the lady. I said, "No, we won't." And so she said, "You guys want a refund?" Yes. I looked at him. I said, "We're not coming back here." He said, "I just didn't want to wait any longer." Sir, we're going to wait, and we're going to get this $60 back per person. So a little bit more assertive is, I think,
Correct.
I think what we are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you balance each other out, right? In that situation, you were aggressive. Ma'am, you were aggressive.
Way past assertive.
We're not assertive on that.
And he was being passive, people pleasing, and then you're
Totally.
being aggressive, and that's like and she knew because she heard both of your messages. Would you like a refund?
Like, didn't even ask why we were leaving. Ma'am, you saw what we saw. Okay, you come here every single day.
She knew.
I would say that's a little bit more assertive. What is your communication style, Darina?
In which situation? You mean predominantly?
Yes.
Huh. Well, I would say I'm assertive. I've received feedback that it might be a bit aggressive.
I'll give you, like, she's aggressive, okay?
It might be a smidge aggressive. I don't know. That's what other people say.
It's totally aggressive.
It depends. I mean, I'm a Leo, okay?
I'm a Leo.
Yeah. You're
I'm-
aggressive.
I'm
ma'am.
assertive.
Ma'am.
My dad's Leo, and he could definitely be considered aggressive.
Right? And it's like, maybe it's the tone. It could be the hair. It's the big hair.
No, it's your face when you do
It
it.
could be the face.
She gives you a terrifying face. What's your most consistent communication style?
I'm assertive for absolute certainty.
Okay.
Mhm.
Not even
Not
like
even
an
a question.
ounce of a doubt. Okay.
Mhm.
At
Okay.
work, I'm assertive.
I have to put on my very patient pants when I actually want to be like passive or even reserved.
Mhm.
It takes effort.
So at work, you practice more passive.
To put on those patient pants
Very
every morning.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
That
these
makes
are
me think
awesome
of like
stories.
the invisible cloak. Like you have to put that on in order to really
Look,
get
I'll
the
tell you
job
one
done.
thing. I'm very happy that we have masks, not only for safety purposes,
but to hide your
also-
face when you want to give someone the stank.
Look, I've mastered just keeping my eyebrows down.
But honestly, your eyebrows say a lot.
They say a lot. That's why I'm trying to. Maybe I gotta
Loosen
like
them up.
Botox these or something, keep them frozen.
Work setting, what is your communication style, Darina?
Assertive. It's assertive at work, especially when you're doing counseling up to 8 hours. You're seeing up to 12 clients a day. After a while, it's you have to be very mindful of time boundaries, not only with the client but also in terms of I have to respect my other clients' times, right? And with the type of counselor I'm a motivational interviewer, I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, I'm solution focused. So it is a very structured approach. And one thing about the approach I do is that we're going to meet your goals, so we need to focus on that, right? And so I've worked with a lot of therapists that are very passive. I mean, they will let the client just lead the entire session and barely say any words, and I like to talk. So
I would say that I'm a little bit of both. Like I like to I'm not as like strict in terms of
did you
like
just call me strict?
I've been calling you that. Okay, and aggressive. But I'm a little bit of both. Like I will be I think that I'm most assertive, but I do allow my clients to lead in some ways.
I was just going to say, I've overheard you, and I think you're very good at letting people lead the conversation. Like you ask the right question, and then you let them carry on for a moment. And then if you need to guide back, you do.
Because I want to see where you go with it. Because everybody's different. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yes.
And I will ramble. So I'm like, let me just ask straightforward questions. let me hear where you're at with it, because that's not where I'm at.
Right.
So I need to know.
A good coach and counselor will allow them to lead at first, but then when it comes to it, it's like, hey, let's refocus on the goals. Let's touch back into this and look at where we're at. And that's true for all relationships, right? Romantic relationships. We made this agreement when we first started being together. Now we kind of have to follow up and see where we're at, right?
And I think one thing to take away from this conversation is to know that if you're identifying with a certain attachment style or a certain communication style, know that you don't attach and communicate the same way every single time. That's the biggest thing here. Is it's not a black and white thinking. It's not to identify solely in one or the other. It's to just bring awareness to the way that you communicate and how effective it is, as well as the way that you attach and how healthy it is.
So let's leave this section of Love Feels Like with these words. This empowerment tip in the journal. When reflecting, remove judgment and be gentle.
Ba-dum-bum.
So we are going to our next commercial break, y'all. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, share, and follow. And when we come back, we're going to do the hot seat
With Michelle Craig.
Hey.
All right. Welcome back, you guys. So thank you for, sitting through that sponsorship, all of that. We are in the final section. This is the hot seat with Michelle Craig.
I love the way you say my name.
See, and every time I see Craig, I go back to Friday.
Everybody does.
Right?
Everybody does.
know?
Yeah.
When I get married, I asked him if I could just keep mine, and he was like, "Can we please change?" I was like,
Are you the one that wants a hyphenated, or you want the full name?
I think I would do hyphenated, but he would prefer that I just swap.
Come on over.
I wonder how that conversation went.
I'm not opposed. Everybody just, it's kind of like everybody knows I'm always going to be Craig.
Excuse me. It's always that.
Craig. I love it. I love it. So while Deanna's having her sip, let me talk to you guys about the hot seat. So this is the section where we asked our audience through Instagram and Facebook questions about what they would like to know regarding attachment styles, communication styles, relationships, and things to ask our guests on the show.
So we've got questions from you guys that we are going to have Michelle Craig really dive into. All right, first question. This is about love languages. So, love language. My love language is gifts and receiving them, and my boyfriend's is affirmations. Unfortunately, I'm turned off by him giving me affirmations. It's too much. Am I wrong for feeling this? I want him to change that.
Okay, good question. So just a general note, I'm an expert in my own relationship, as dynamic as it is, not necessarily in everyone else's, but I will happily provide my feedback on this.
Yes.
I would say you're not wrong for feeling that way, right? My thought would be that you might be wrong for saying that you want someone else to change, because in general, asking or being in a relationship and expecting somebody else to change from the jump is maybe not the right direction that I would personally take it. But with that being said, I think that it's totally healthy for you to want somebody who has, or at least loves you in the love language that you speak, right? And unfortunately, I come from a place that I can't provide a ton of input on this one, because I personally share the same love language. We're both very much touch oriented. And so we don't really have a ton of friction on that, because it's always the same love language for each other. But if I was going to be in a relationship with somebody and their love language was not touch, and even more so was kind of just the opposite of touch, I think that I would probably find difficulty in that space for myself, because it is definitely something that would be important to me. What are your thoughts?
I think that it's really important to love your partner in the way that they are able to receive it. And so for me, in hearing this question, I think that the person who asked the question, they may identify a little bit more in terms of their attachment style as a love avoidant attachment style, because they feel uncomfortable by too many feelings and too many affirmations. And so their partner may be a little bit more of a love addicted, or they just have no issues with verbalizing how they feel about their partner. So I think that there just may be a little bit of a difference in attachment styles that down the road it could potentially pose as an issue unless there is intentionality behind loving your partner in the way that they're able to receive it and being able to communicate exactly what those needs are and fulfilling that over time.
Love that. I love you guys' answers.
Yeah.
What do you
So
think?
good. Well, my first question when I hear a scenario like that is, does he know? Did you tell him? Right? Have you communicated that to him? And if you did, how did you communicate that? Was it aggressive? Were you being assertive? When you did that, what was the response and the reaction? And if that conversation hasn't been held, when will it happen? Because the biggest thing that we can do is continue to carry these feelings of, and the word that just keeps coming to me is the aversion, right? I'm not into it. And I say that because I've been in situations where a guy I was dating gave me a certain type of love language, and I was like, yo, that is not my style. Right? And it didn't last long, hence still being single, not talking about boyfriends or fiancés up in here, okay?
What was the do you remember what the love language was or what the incident was?
So it was a guy that I was just like probably dating for maybe a month or two. And even though this is a great gesture, it's super nice, it was let's go out of the country together. And for me, like when I say I'm a Leo, I am classically and traditionally that. It takes a while for my wall to come down. And for me, it's I've only been talking to you for about 2 or 3 months. We've gone on dates. It's been good. I'm not comfortable with going out of the country with you. We're not on that level yet. I would prefer spending some more time developing that trust and that rapport and that comfort. And when I expressed it, I probably said it aggressively, but not too sure. But I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's really nice. Let me think about it." And so I didn't say it aggressively, but when I did follow up, I was like, "Yeah, that's not really what I want to do right now. Is there something else that we can do? Because I do enjoy your time." And from that point, it fizzled.
Yeah, I was done after that.
Yeah.
I remember that specific incident.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get on to the next question. Okay. Ooh, this is something I really am interested to know what you say, Michelle.
Okay.
So, me and my partner want to get married, but we haven't talked about finances. How do we start the conversation without offending each other?
That's a great question and an important one. Because I know that I've known people who have gotten married without really having that conversation, and that can be very difficult. And I think that the best way to open up that door is to reference something, and it can be perceived aggressive. You know what I mean? It's a touchy subject for anybody, right? No one wants to tell you how they spend their money. And I think it's different when you're living with someone versus if you're not. But I would say the best way to just crack the door open even a bit for conversation would be, when you were growing up, did your mom or did your dad pay you the bills? Just an easy question. Like,
It's good.
did you know if your parents had separate bank accounts or if they shared them? Or if you're not even comfortable with that, but you're pretty serious with someone, you could always say, we like to travel or we like to go out to dinner or whatever. Like, do you think we should start a collective savings account between the two of us just that we both put in so that way we can do something little together? Because if you're early on, right? And that's really important to you, you may not be ready to be like, oh, let's go out and buy a house or, blend everything we've got. But just to start little ways, it might be helpful to say, can we just start that little bit of savings, or can we start a travel fund or something like that as a little segue?
That's really good.
I like how your follow up is really understanding my partner's relationship with money.
100%.
Right? Because there's so many situations where it's like we don't talk about money at all.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we split and I'm left with nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or who paid the bills, right? Like when you were growing up, did your mom pay the bills? Like in my house, my dad took care of most of the bills, but my mother definitely had her account that she really sourced for, like, she was able to have funds of her own that she just kind of got to do whatever she wanted with, kind of thing. But every home's differently. Some have 2 separate accounts and 1 joint. Some have 100 separate in a joint. Some share everything.
I think especially with marriage, right? The question being like focusing on marriage. I like to really coach folks in saying marriage is a business contract.
It totally is.
You're signing paperwork legally binding you with somebody else. There's the love that's there, there's the emotions attached to it, but at the end of the day, when we're looking at black and white, there's paperwork. It's a contract. So, at times it's being able to say like, hey, we really need to talk about this. This is a serious topic and discussion, especially if we're talking about having a future together. We have to talk about that financial future as well.
Yeah, that's a challenging one. You know what I
Heavy.
mean? Because I think that sometimes when we get into these amazing relationships and we are deeply in love, we can have like we can live a little bit in a fantasy world, and finances disrupts that world. Like
100%.
It can.
it disrupts that, but the reality is one person in the marriage, or soon to be marriage, may have a bunch of assets and the other person doesn't. And in due time that will come up.
It also can be a huge deal breaker.
Yep.
You can think that like you've got yourself like everything that you want, and then you're like, hey, what about finances? And he's like, my money's my money. And you're like, oh.
That
JK.
prenup
That
conversation.
point, okay, good to know. No
Right.
worries. Just need to know where we stand on that, or I'll take care of everything. It's like, but what does that look like?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a challenging one. Finances. But I do like the indirect way of introducing the conversation of what did you grow up exposed to? What did your parents do with finances? So that I have a better understanding of where you stand when you join the relationship with me and we start to talk about the monies.
And if it immediately creates like an apprehension or a real standoff, or they're uncomfortable, or they're just full flowing, and then it's good for you to know which direction and how comfortable they are with the conversation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, when you look at history and gender roles and norms, money talk never comes from women. It's always initiated by men with men. And so now we're in 2021. Women are more independent. We're the hen of the house, right? Head hen, is that right?
Head hen.
That's
Head
right.
hen.
That's what it is. And so, it's uncomfortable. It's because it's unknown, right? It's uncharted territory. And so we want to empower you to think about these different forms of conversations that you can have to strengthen your bond and your attachment. Because sometimes the most uncomfortable topics are the most strengthening ones in a relationship.
That's a big fact.
Agreed.
All right, let's get on to our third and final question. I just went through a breakup after 3 years. I feel like the pain will never end. I feel like I won't find anyone else. Is this normal? How many times can you fall in love?
Oh, okay. Starting at the end, I don't know that there's a count. I think you can do it many, many times if you really wanted to. I think that when you're going through a breakup, all of us have been through breakups.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
yeah.
Don't break up with me before I have to clock in for a shift, okay?
Look, I'm
Lose
out.
my whole appetite, can't focus.
Try to call a student.
Right, just and really don't want to call nobody, okay? I'm using PTO.
You're lucky I showed up.
Okay.
I would say though that it's a perfect opportunity for growth, because it's the best time to reflect on, what's making you so sad and where you can go from there. I remember that there have been times that I broke up and I took months of just like self-discovery. But then there were also times that I broke up and in reflecting, I was like, this one isn't me. Like, I know there's a healthy difference. Like you can always do something different, right? And everybody can improve every time. But you have to look at where somebody's trying to meet you, and you can't be on a different page you guys can't be on 2 totally different pages trying to make something work. And so assessing, where they are in their setup, and, saying, did they need to work on something that I've already mastered, or do I need to master something that they've already mastered? Do I need to kind of come up to where they are on a topic, or what was the breaking point? I think that that's really important.
For sure. For sure. And I would even suggest being okay with not knowing everything,
100%.
right? That radical acceptance.
Yeah.
and just being able to let go and getting to back to a place where there's that self-discovery and self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would even venture to say that I know that with a lot of breakups, we will say, like, "Oh, I just need to get closure." And I don't necessarily believe that closure is a real thing. I think that it's a way that we can have one last conversation and make sure that this is what we both really want to do. I think that closure is something that you can only seek within yourself. And there's no question that can be answered by the other person that will heal whatever wound you're experiencing, whatever pain you're feeling. I think that when we go through a breakup, the best advice, at least that I can offer, is to allow yourself to feel whatever feelings come up, because each of those emotions that you experience, they have a function. So pain has a function to teach you something about what you went through. Fear has a function to protect you from doing that again. Um, so we experience these different emotions, and if we spend so much time avoiding them, then we're going to spend a lot of time um, not experiencing the other side of those painful emotions. We've got to be able to feel love in its full capacity at the same strength that we feel pain in its full capacity.
Mm,
For
speak
sure.
that. So I think this is a really good segue into the game.
Okay.
We'll wrap up with the game.
Let's wrap up with the game. Let's do 2 rounds of what love feels like. So, for those that have the journal, we have a lot of prompts. We have cool activities to guide you in being able to explore your attachment styles and your communication styles. And so, one way of doing that, we're going to show you by playing this game. Love feels like blank. Okay, because we all have our own experience with love. And I think this is a fun way of kind of showing where we're at with love. Not necessarily with others, but what it feels like for us.
Let's go.
So, love feels like fun.
Love feels like being wrapped up in a warm blanket
Here she goes.
on a winter morning, drinking a little cup of coffee, and maybe scrolling on Instagram. I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm going to say that love feels like a really solid 3-part harmony.
Okay,
Mhm,
musician, singer.
mhm.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's right. And so, love feels like, and I go to horses because I'm an equine therapist, and being there is very freeing. So, love is very freeing.
I like it.
Love feels like acceptance, and even more specifically, being able to give that girthy laugh that isn't the most attractive, but comes from the
Right.
belly and sounds horrifying,
like Like a double chin laugh.
a double chin laugh, but it feels so good and it feels so natural and it feels so accepting.
Okay. I think that love feels like your favorite roller coaster.
Ooh,
Mhm.
give me a little bit more words with that.
I think that it makes you feel you know when you're going to the very top of the first one and it's just like you're really excited but kind of nervous, and then you go over the hump and you get all the butterflies, like your whole stomach is sitting up at your throat, right? But then you just find yourself just cheesing, and you're just like, but you're holding on to the whole ride through. And then once you finish it, you have your ups and you have your downs and you move all through it, and you have your favorite parts, right? And then you can run it again, and it's a daily, a weekly, a monthly, however often you have it.
And when you get off, you're still safe, which makes you want to get back on.
Right back on.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That was really
Thanks.
good.
That's a good one to end
Great
on.
visual. Yeah. Yeah. So, if you're thinking about what love feels like to you, take a minute, maybe write it down.
Maybe comment.
Comment, like, share. We want to know what this feels like to you. For those of you watching on YouTube, comment and let us know what else you want to hear us talk about here on this podcast. If you are listening, same deal. Comment, subscribe, let us know what you've enjoyed, what you didn't love, what you want to hear, what you don't want to hear. We want to hear all the feedback. Please.
And we're so thankful that you guys tuned in with us. Thanks so much again for
Thank
coming,
you,
Michelle.
Thank you for
Michelle.
having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
Where can the people find you if they want to find you online?
Oh, this is a good question. Can we maybe post a link on your page?
Go to Empower El Mundo. You will find Michelle Craig It's just the full name rolls off the tongue, okay? You just have to say the full thing.
Difficult to change.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope that you've
Thank you.
enjoyed the 5-part series of this Empowered as Fuck journal. If you haven't ordered yours yet, go ahead and go to www.bledsoeempower.com or on our IGs, Facebook at Empower El Mundo. You'll find all the goods there.
And you won't regret it.
Yes.
That's right. And with that being said,
You gotta live in power.
to be empowered.
You gotta live in power.
To be,
Oh. Not the footwork. Not the footwork.
all the time.
Cheers,
And she got the blue on. Cheers.